Good morning and welcome to Business Minds. I'm Cindy Bird.
And I'm Melissa Smith. We are so happy to have you here with us on this Tuesday, this snowy Tuesday.
Yes, absolutely snowy Tuesday morning. I saw a lot of posts on Facebook last night that people were hoping for a snow day today. Yep. How about your kids?
My four were definitely fingers crossed for a snow day today.
Well, and it looks like some good snow for getting out there and playing in too. Although, cleaning off my car was about as much as I cared to do this morning. But
Yep.
We're glad that you're choosing to join us here this morning. We're so excited to kick off our theme for the month of February, which is Infusing Heart into your business. We chose this theme in order to highlight topics that are associated with individual well-being as well as workplace well-being, because one impacts the other.
Absolutely.
Whether you're the business owner or the employee, there's definitely a connection there that you need to be aware of.
For sure.
And it can ultimately impact your success and your bottom line. Listen to these statistics. American Psychological Association, Gallup, and the American Institute for Stress are where these come from. Nearly $300 billion a year
Wow.
is spent on stress-related healthcare costs. 87% of workers are emotionally disconnected from their workplace. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want employees that are emotionally disconnected, and unhappy workers are less productive. So maybe we should start by defining.
Yep. So we always like to kind of set a baseline here on Business Minds, and so we're going to start with what we agreed upon as a definition of well-being. And while there's no consensus around a single definition for well-being, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention says that at a minimum, well-being includes the presence of positive emotions and moods, so your workers being content and happy, the absence of negative emotions. I don't know that anybody can really say their workplace is completely absent of negative emotions, but generally, if there is a feel of depression or anxiety, or you see an individual or group suffering from depression or anxiety, the well-being is probably not overflowing in that place. A general satisfaction with life, fulfillment, and positive functioning. So I want to let that sit with business owners and professionals for a moment. As you think about going through your day, think about the Center for Disease Control and Prevention says positive functioning is attributed to well-being. Positive functioning. I know that some people joke and say when something is dysfunctional, oh, that's just the way we operate, we're dysfunctional. And one of the sources that a lot of people go to for information, they have all sorts of information from well-being to stress to flu information, general sickness. Positive functioning is a source, is a definition of well-being. So
that's really, really important to know. And the other side of that is that well-being impacts heart health specifically. So we want to explain another reason why we chose the theme of infusing heart into your business, and that's in recognition of February being Heart Health Month, American Heart Month specifically. So those statistics are pretty astounding there when you look at the fact that according to the CDC, again, about 630,000 Americans die each year.
That's 1 in 4.
Yeah, from heart disease.
1 in 4 Americans die from heart disease. And heart disease is the number one cause of death for men and women. So we know that cancer is it's a popular topic, especially in central Illinois, where we have big advocates for St. Jude. We know lots of people, And not to undermine the relevance and importance of cancer, however, heart disease is the number one leading cause in men and women. So we definitely wanted to share those statistics with you as to why well-being is just really, really important to your all-around health.
And as women business owners ourselves, we want to support the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women campaign. So we are wearing red for every one of our shows in February because we just feel so strongly that there needs to be greater awareness and attention given to more dollars, more research, more effort being put into research, especially surrounding women's heart disease in general. We know that the link between stress and heart disease has been known for a long time, but maybe you don't know the brain science that's a correlation there or a connection there, and how you can put yourself more in control of managing stress. That's really what we want to focus on today.
So we spent some time gathering some facts and gathering some fun little stories for you guys today. And we wanted to start off with some statistics. I know some people are big fans of statistics, others not so much, but we thought that these would be a little bit fun to start us off of the quote-unquote modern workplace. So the most common use of telecommuting is actually for workers to continue working at home after they've put in a full day. So while we might think of telecommuting as being an option to have an alternative work schedule or a place where you can stay at home and really focus and get things done, oftentimes people will use that telecommuting to extend their workday.
And technology, of course, is what's helping.
Yeah, helping. We'll use
helping that to happen.
Workers in America now work on average 164 hours longer a year than they used to. And up to 60% of electronic workers have mental health issues. So if you think of that in today's language, I think most everybody has to use a computer or an electronic of some sort. Up to 60% of those have mental health issues. Now, how about this interesting point about those three statistics from the modern workplace? Cindy?
Well, they're actually from 1993, 25 years ago. But I think we can agree that they all still ring true today,
Yes,
and we could probably add a lot more to that.
Right.
So we thought you'd find it interesting that those were from that long ago. So I want to bring you, I want to bring you up to speed and share some more current statistics with you. These are from 2016 and 2017. So according to the Statistic Brain Research Institute, 48% of people feel that their stress level has gone up in the last 5 years.
So if you are feeling that way, join the other 48% of people who are also feeling that way.
And of those people that they researched, the number one cause of stress that was mentioned, job pressure. What does that include? It includes your coworker tension, bosses, work overload, and the American Institute for Stress echoes those same statistics. They say that according to their research, workload and people issues were the two things that were listed most as the causes of workplace stress.
So as we are talking to professionals of today and business owners and entrepreneurs and startups, we really want to focus in on some easy practical tips that you can do to really help hone in on recognizing those stressors, those people issues, recognizing what that work overload or what those feelings of having a work overload do to you.
Absolutely.
And so Cindy's going to take us through part of the brain science, which I found absolutely fascinating. She is so knowledgeable in this subject, and I appreciate you sharing it with us, with me leading up to this show and with our audience.
Excuse me.
So she's going to share with us some ways that the brain functions, and then we're going to transition into some simple things that you can do as a professional, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a mom. I was thinking about this last night and praying over the show today, and just little things that you can do in your everyday life to help you reduce this stress level that the majority of Americans are feeling today.
It is significant that we know that there are tools and things we can do out there that will help us in all parts of our life,
Absolutely.
Not just at work, but in, we are the whole person.
Sure.
And business owners need to recognize it's the whole person that's coming to work, and you as a business owner addressing yourself in a more holistic manner. So I got into studying brain science several years ago for my own benefit, and the more I learn about a topic, the more I find it something I want to share with everybody else because it's so relevant, it's so applicable to help you understand. So let's take a look at it. To the inside of your brain, of course, we have a lot of different parts of our brain, but the emotional center of our brain, a part of that is the amygdala.
Okay.
And the amygdala is our warning center. It's where we're hardwired to detect threats, danger.
So our fight or flight.
Right.
Okay.
We've all heard of that term, that it's our fight or flight center. And it's also where our emotional memories are stored, which we'll talk about that when we get to our section on mindfulness especially. So in the days of our primitive ancestors, that warning center served a very powerful purpose. It helped with survival, not just running away from danger, but also being able to have a short burst of stress,
Okay.
which kicked in the adrenaline to be able to go hunt down food, kill it, bring it home, have that great reward
So it
and
truly
prize.
was
Yeah,
necessary
it was
for
necessary
survival. Okay.
for survival. What's important to know is we're still hardwired that way.
Right.
The amygdala is still our warning center. What's different now is it's not a saber-toothed tiger triggering that reaction. It's our micromanaging boss. It's a toxic coworker or work environment. It's juggling multiple responsibilities. It's speaking in front of a group. It's trying to keep up with the latest technology trends, and the list goes on and on.
And while all of those are really valid concerns, it's also what's the other side of that makes those triggers, that triggers that adrenaline and that fight or flight?
Well, the key to remember is that while our ancestors had short bursts, we are experiencing long term. Long term. And so it's these longer periods of where we're anxious and stressed that's really important to know. There was some real recent research done just last year that showed that increased activity in the amygdala, so this long-term activity, can contribute to inflammation in the arteries, which is a precursor to cardiovascular disease. It can lead up to that. So,
We really want to touch too on, while difficult coworkers may be the trigger, work overload, the use of electronics. We heard that statistic earlier, how 60% of workers working with electronics have mental health issues, that it's also perceived stressors.
yes.
Right?
Yes. Dan Siegel, who's written a lot about the topic of neuroscience and mindfulness, calls it the dance between the brain and the mind. So
Okay.
we have the functioning part of our brain, which I described just a few minutes ago,
Sure.
and then we have our mind. So we have all of the things coming into our brain from our senses, but then our mind decides what to do with that information.
And that was key to me as you and I were preparing for today's show, and we were discussing, I think I shared with you a story when I was in basic training. And part of military basic training is that they kind of break you down and then build you back up as a team. And so it's very purposeful. And when there was one particular soldier that they had that just kind of refused to be broken down and very hard-headed, and actually in turn made things very difficult for the rest of the group. But I remember hearing one of my drill sergeants say, and this was so key to me and has stuck with me now for 20 years, that a person's perception is their reality. So while we might disagree with a person's perception, so as a business owner or as a manager or as a boss, you might disagree with a person's perception, it's key to understand that that's still their reality, that they still view a challenging coworker as a threat, or they still view the necessity to call into a meeting at 6:30 at night when they're supposed to be off as an added stressor. While you may perceive something completely differently, it might not be a big deal to you, it might be something you just are able to go with the flow with. A person's perception is in fact their reality. So by keeping that in mind, it might be a little easier to recognize when others are stressed out. Because even though it doesn't stress us out, if their perception is that it's challenging or overwhelming or it's just an added burden, it might help you recognize that you could handle it a different way, or just be a little kinder or gentler, or maybe just approach a conversation a little different. Just pausing to remember that someone's perception is their reality, whether you agree with it or not.
Absolutely. And being aware of how powerful those perceptions can be on us. There were a couple of studies that I found pretty interesting. One said that some police officers find it more stressful to complete paperwork than to go out and chase criminals. So stress is a very personalized phenomenon where one person doesn't perceive it a certain way, as you mentioned, Melissa, and someone else does. That's unique to each person.
absolutely.
And that's important to remember when we're operating in building relationships and just interacting with people in general.
Well, and especially at work, because I know that we've mentioned this a couple times, but at work, we spend a lot of time with people that we don't necessarily love the most. The people that we love the most are the ones that are at home, or our friends that are waiting for us after work or on the weekends. And we spend a good majority of our time at work with people who might not be willing to give us a little bit more grace or a little bit more understanding like our family, but yet we're giving them our best and then going home and giving the people at home our second best. And so by understanding that just because you don't agree with someone being stressed out or worked up over a situation, may necessarily not be something that stresses you out, but just understanding that because stress is so personal and it's so significant, and we do spend a significant amount of that time together at work, that it's really key. Understanding stress and how it affects other people is really important.
Well, when you look at the research that says a lot of workers perceive that they have little control over situations,
yeah, that's key.
and that can lead to stress, that's
Sure.
important. So from our perspective, what we want to share with you is how can you be the one taking control?
Yep.
Then we can't control someone else's behavior as much as we wish we could, of course, but what we can control are our perceptions, or recognize our perceptions.
Sure.
And then how do we recognize the impact of those perceptions on our thoughts, our thinking, our mindsets,
Yep.
and then how that in turn is perhaps causing us to go down that path of a lot of stress unnecessarily.
Right.
If
Yep.
we can gain more control over that, then that's really, really key.
Yeah, so there's some simple things that you can do to kind of control your own stress and to help control a stressful situation. And one of those, I think, is just the 3-second pause. Just recognizing when your body is reacting to a situation. So say a challenging coworker is approaching, or your boss is approaching, and you're thinking in your mind, oh my goodness, this can't be anything good. Just being mindful enough to stop,
Yes.
pause for a few seconds and say, okay, am I letting my mind run away with me, or am I creating a stressful situation before I even need to create a stressful situation, can be super powerful. And it doesn't take long. And it is a part of your brain that you can constantly keep exercising. What's the word for that?
Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. So you can be growing your brain during those potentially what you perceive to be stressful situations, and help manage a situation before it ever even escalates, just by taking a deep breath. And
in that pause, you have the conscious opportunity to redirect the activity from that emotional warning center, the amygdala,
Yep.
to your prefrontal cortex, where the logic and the reasoning is. That's
Just by
that part of
recognizing
our
it.
brain. And so you're growing new neural pathways.
Sure.
So think about if you constantly are just thinking about the negative side of
Right.
things. You're like, oh my gosh, my boss does this, or my coworker does this, or
my
so-and-so-
workload's never ending.
Those are mental ruts that you literally fall into.
Right.
You're training your brain to think along those lines all the time.
Right.
Versus if you practice stopping that,
Yeah.
or simply just that the pause that Melissa mentioned is so key, because it opens up that chance to notice.
Yep.
I'm having these thoughts. What am I going to do about it? How can I consciously redirect that away?
And so that brings up one of our buzzwords. So there's been a lot of buzzword going around, and people, even the word buzzword has been used as an overused buzzword, but mindfulness. So taking that 3-second pause is an opportunity for you to be mindful of your surroundings, of how you're reacting, and of how you're going to carry the situation forward. Some other things that you can do throughout the day Don't underestimate the value of a good stress ball. Just taking that stress ball and squeezing it and kind of letting out some of that energy and really feeling it through your whole body, through, the core of your body. Volunteering. So they say people who volunteer are just happier people. I know that there's some studies for seniors that when you reach a certain age, volunteering helps keep your mind sharp and helps keep you from digressing into certain ailments that we face as we get older. Go outside on breaks. So even if it's a little chilly, going outside for a quick 30 seconds, just breathing in the cold air and walking back in, that can be refreshing. And it's key that as simple as these things sound, not to underestimate them. It's as valuable as the 3-second pause. And not underestimating the little things is really what managing stress is all about. You're not overestimating the little things to help keep your stress down, and you're not underestimating the little things by seeing how key they are to helping you keep your stress down.
Well, one of the things that we tend to do as human beings is to think about something that happened yesterday or last week or 10 years ago, and we get stuck in that mode of ruminating over the past
When generally
and
we're
kicking
really bad
ourselves.
at remembering.
We're bad. Well, we are, but that amygdala is the emotional storage house too. It stores long-term memory, as I mentioned earlier. So it is easy for something to trigger it.
Okay.
It could be a song you hear on the radio. It could be seeing a car go by that was the same color as your ex-husband, or there's just something that might trigger any kind of emotion in you. The other thing we tend to do is to worry about the future. So mindfulness meditation is the best tool to teach us how to be in the present instead. I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
Why don't zebras get ulcers?
Cindy, I have no idea.
Well, because that zebra is not worrying about the lion that chased him yesterday, and he's not worrying about the lion that's going to chase him tomorrow. He's only worried about the lion that's chasing him right in the moment.
Sure.
And that's what we've gotten away from in our lives. Again, if your mental ruts are that you worry about the past a lot or you worry about the future a lot, you're not living in the moment and just being with what's coming at you. Life's a roller coaster. Most of us perceive it that way. It's all these ups and downs.
Right.
And we forget, or we don't even know maybe. I mean, this is what I learned as being a student of mindfulness practice myself, is I learned there's a third place to be. And it's a beautiful place.
Where's that?
Let me tell you how peaceful it is. I've been practicing mindfulness meditation now for several years, and I went through an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course as well. That was awesome because it really helped me notice my thoughts, to accept those thoughts, but not get caught up in them. Think of your thoughts like clouds drifting by. We cannot stop our thoughts.
Right.
Nor should we try. Mindfulness meditation isn't about controlling or stopping your thoughts. It's about noticing them and noticing the impact they're having on you, but it's also changing your relationship with your thoughts. So if you get caught in that traffic jam, instead of the thought going, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for work, and then if I'm late for work, this is going to happen, instead, change your reaction, change your relationship with that thought and say, wow, I'm going to have an extra 10 minutes to just sit in my car and relax. Maybe pray, maybe do a little mindfulness meditation. Maybe put my favorite song on the radio.
And I think that's really important for business owners and professionals and managers to really recognize, is that they do have the ability to control how their reactions impact others and situations. So as a business owner, not only are you dealing with your business, you're dealing with your family, you're dealing with employees and vendors and customers. It's really important to understand that your reactions and how you carry that stress with you is powerful.
Yes, your demeanor is so important. You're setting the tone. And if if that particular topic interests you, make sure you tune into our last show in February too, which is going to be about leadership presence, because we're going to pick up on that same topic
Yep.
and build on many things that we've talked about today. This relationship of your thoughts and your perceptions, but also how is that showing up in your presence as the leader
Yep.
in the workplace. One of the things that I want to make sure that I share with our viewers, Melissa, is that mindfulness meditation is not just a relaxation tool. This is really a tool that can change your brain, as we've talked about, and in turn change your life. And I don't say it can change your brain. Neuroplasticity, that's when you're changing, but it really can change your life. I'm living proof of that. You know, when you do change your relationship with your thoughts, and you do change how you're perceiving things, and you do find this wonderful tool to be able to. And I also want to emphasize that it's called a practice. I know those times when I've not practiced consistently, it's just like when you stop exercising your physical body, you're not going to keep up with the muscle tone, and get sore in between when there's too much of a gap between your workouts. Same thing happens with our brains. We have to do this as a regular practice. And a lot of workplaces are recognizing the value of this. Even sports teams are practicing mindfulness meditation. It has become very mainstream. And I'm a little bit worried that it's going to become just a
buzzword, right?
Instead of something that people really see as a valuable tool. I know I will never stop practicing it, because I know what a difference it's made for me.
Yeah, very good.
It really has.
Well, I thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. Cindy has been such a blessing to me in sharing all of her knowledge about this particular subject, and I hope that you've been able to learn a little bit about how it's not something to add to your list. It's actually something to help you take away the pressure of your list. So we're not suggesting go out and, add another to do, but
10 minutes a day is all it takes, really, to build that mindfulness muscle.
So, and just take a couple of the nuggets that we suggested today, and a good start would be the 3-second pause and maybe doing some research on mindfulness meditation. So I think, do you plan on sharing some
We're going to share
information?
some wonderful resources on our Facebook page, so you'll be able to check those out. We'll share some links to sites that I've found very helpful, articles that you might want to read. The great news is there's no shortage of resources
absolutely.
out there on the topic of mindfulness meditation, especially, and controlling your reactions. There's a wonderful book that I've used for years when I teach interpersonal communication skills called Working With You Is Killing Me. That's a resource I'll put out there. Catherine Crowley and Kathy Elster wrote that book, but they have a great unhooking process in there that can help you to have that pause and to recognize when you're getting emotionally hijacked is a term that they use, which is pretty valuable to know. So we will list those resources. We also want to take time to look ahead to next week and let you know that we're going to continue on this wonderful topic of infusing heart into your business, focusing on individual well-being, workplace well-being, by exploring how you can evaluate your company culture. So if you're a startup that doesn't even have that culture established yet, you're going to want to tune in to some tips for how to be mindful of the culture you're creating. And if you're an existing business, we'll help you explore some techniques and some ways that you can evaluate your culture so that you are building and creating an environment in which you're thriving, your employees are thriving, and in turn your business is thriving.
And if you'd like to be a guest on our show for next week to have some assistance in evaluating your company culture, feel free to reach out to either Cindy or myself, or email us at businessminds@email.com. Thanks for joining us today.
We'll see you next week.
PeoriaLife.com